If you're sure you know what that dream you just had means, you better look again. Feel deeper into it and listen from your heart. Because a dream says many things at the same time, many things at once. And tracking dreams means following all the tracks. Not just the parts you identify with or make you feel good. Fall out of your mind and into your body and be curious on a feral level about the wild creature your dream actually is. Step back and look at the whole terrain. Peace. Good to see you. Thanks for inviting me over.
Well, Matthew, I recently came across your Instagram account, and every time you post, I was just like, this is awesome. Like, I love that, because the one thing that I always yearn for is somebody that speaks my language, or that gets it. You know, you get it. You're there, you know. It's not just like, let's do dream work to see what the dream means. It's like a lot more. And that's what I love about your content. I didn't want to look you up too much because I wanted to learn as we go here. And, you know, both of us sharing stuff about what we believe in dreams. But I wanted to ask you, like, how did you come upon this path? Like, what made you go into it in this manner?
I mean,
like,
first of all, you know, thank you for your comments. And it's like, takes one to know one. And I imagine as for you, it's almost as if dreams are more alive than my quote default life. And so when I sleep, you know, it's just like, well, that has always in all my life been a major reality for me. And it's fascinating because, as you know, there's no end. It's fathomless. It's all these hidden pathways. And like, I just want to keep going. I want to see what's out there because it's so much, and it speaks so much to our day world here. So how I got onto Instagram, or, you know, how I'm doing Raven dream tracking is very interesting because, you know, for years I did, I live in a remote southern Utah town of 250 people, and I've offered dream work as a giveaway for a couple decades. And just something that I like to offer people and like to be in groups with people dreaming. And guess what? COVID hit us all, right? And and in a way, it gave me permission to start working through my own discomfort and skepticism around technology and social media, which I've had. You know, I'm like, how do I do this and just be authentic? How do I do this and be in integrity? And will people, you know, take what I have to say as serious and not some shallow sort of thing because it's on social media? You know what I mean? And so I worked through all that stuff and then started launching. You know, I found that this visual medium of Instagram and sticking to just who I am without trying to make myself anything different, people were attracted to that. And I was like, holy shit, you know, what's going on here? And I realized that medicine of dream work was reaching out through the world of technology, which is, I both, you know, I'm like, that's not right. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is really important. And so now I find myself working with people all over the world, and what I bring to the table seems important to those people. And so, yeah.
Well, social media does make you like think of ways to express it. I think it makes an artist out of everyone, in the way that, you know, you have to write the content and you have to say it, and you want to also feel, I don't know, your power while you're doing that, and not, you know, like a marketing sellout, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And, Yeah. And like you know, it's like the way that you use imagery and so on. Instagram seems to be the right platform for speaking in the dream language in a way,
Right.
with the visual, with the sound, with the poetics, however you decide to do it. So there's a lot of creative outlet for me that way. That's just not like Facebook or something that's just, words, something much more.
But I love it. I love Instagram for what it is. I never knew how to use reels to express what I wanted to. And so it began by just me playing with images and music, because I was like, well, I know music and I know imagery, but how do I marry like the dream work that I do with that? And I'm still to be honest, still in the process. But
Right.
I do love the idea of films and mini films. So
Yeah.
I'm playing around with the idea of creating like little, I want to start creating little, like almost like mini trailers, but the film doesn't exist. It's just.
Yeah. No, that's awesome though. But I mean, and that's what sort of Instagram is, or in like dreams, it's like you open these doors for people and you allow them to peer through, and
Yeah.
and then the path is their path after that. But we're, I feel like we're door openers. So
no, it's more like fishing, right? It's like somebody's got to take this bait and enter the world of dreams. Yeah.
Right.
I like to trick people into, I think that's what I love about the Carlos Castaneda books is the sorcerers. I remember reading that they have to use trickery to lure in the dreamer into a different level, because the mind is so busy, that
Right.
the magic and the sorcery of dreams is lost in this like world of just like, scientific dreaming or head dreaming, which is fine. I love problem solving in my dreams, no problems with that. But I feel like my path is a little more abstract and magical. Oh, and by the way, look at my little mascot for today.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'm glad the Raven's here. Yeah, the Raven is definitely a trickster, by the way.
Oh yeah. I know. Hello, dreamers, start dreaming. I know, right? Probably like, shut up, Jen.
Not at all. I mean, that's how I got sent into the world of dreams. Is I actually had a raven show up I was maybe 19 or 20, and I was dreaming. I was standing in a desert, and I was looking at my feet, and I looked up, and I saw a raven sweep down, wings outspread, and its beak hit me in the third eye. I fell back, and I woke up terrified in the day world from that dream. And I was like, what the hell just happened to me? And that was my whole journey into befriending, becoming really close to ravens in physical life as well as the dream. So,
and how old were you?
I was 19, I think, at the time, living up in northern in Missoula, Montana at the time. And it was just, that was my first sort of big animal dream and encounter, and it definitely changed the whole trajectory of my life. It seemed very small. I mean, it seemed small at the moment, but when I look back over, now 30 years, I'm like, wow, that was like, big gear switch right there.
Interesting. My first interest into there's something more to dreams was actually my mother, who's not a dreamer. We were living in Israel at the time, and she had a spell of dreams, like psychic dreams, just like over the span of 2 to 3 months. And she would wake up with the accident in her mind. And then she would say names, what happened. And then it was in the news. And we would try to stop my dad was like, fine, let's go try to stop the accidents because they were all nearby. But we were always late. Like we always arrived when it just happened.
Wow.
So
that's intense. Yeah.
It was one of those like little seeds that went into my mind. I was little, like we're talking 6, 5, I don't know.
Right.
And it was kind of like, like that's strange that my mother, who is not like, she had me, which was always talking about astral projection since I was born.
Right.
And past life stuff. And she never understood me, but yet she had this moment of dreams, and that I was interested in astral, not dreams at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, dreams, like what's that about? And during my teen years, that evolved with me trying to astral project once again. And instead,
Yeah.
the side effect was a lot of dreaming.
Right. The side effect. I love that. And it's fascinating that you come from a lineage of dreamers, right? So.
Yeah, everybody in my family is a dreamer, but nobody pursues it except me and my younger sister. So I
Yeah,
wanted to ask you a little bit
like
more about your poetry. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
What you write is it's a very poetic, way of speaking and writing. And I was wondering, like, when did that start, and how has that helped, I guess, express the dream language?
Yeah, great question. So, I started writing in my 20s, and poetry especially. And I was definitely different than the status quo. And because of events in my life, I didn't actually trust humans very much in my 20s. And so I spent much of my life, at that point, I lived up in Western Montana. I spent most of my time in the wilderness and out. In my life, I was a surveyor and a mapper, so I was always outside, and nature was my true ally and the thing that I did trust. And so, I was an introvert. I spent almost all the time with myself. And what happens? You start writing, you start doing stuff like that. But prose was boring to me. And so following this sort of free form and into poetry was just a way that I think started tapping into a lot of blocked emotion that was in me as a younger man that needed to be expressed. And I tried taking poetry classes, and every time I put myself in some box or some structured thing, I get my talons out and I tear my way out of it and bitch about it and keep going. And so that's just sort of my style. And then, but so that's why I say what I do is sort of feral poetry. It's just, it's the one way that I seem to be capable of really expressing what's important to me. And so that's what I do. And what I've realized now over the years is dreams speak in their own poetic style. So by speaking poetry in a way, I'm enacting a waking dream. And so those two really know how to be in conversation with each other for me. And that's why I do poetry. And that's why I put it out there. I don't try and make things easy to understand on Instagram. Everyone says, hey man, you're just going to lose people. And I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, I was just saying yesterday in the Dream Lab podcast on Clubhouse, we were just talking about it. Like, we can't spoon feed people teachings. It's like they have to figure it out on their own, because it's not your path, it's their path. And you can only put little arrows here and there, but you can't tell them exactly where to go, because then you'd be interfering. And also I was born in the 70s, and so I didn't have internet until I was 23.
Yeah.
I'm 46 now. And for me, that was very important to grow up without that influence, because I was able to understand what creating for myself meant and not for social gratification. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I also understood that back in the day, it wasn't how many followers you had. That meant you were shit. The unique, obscure person with 3 followers, that's who you wanted to go to. It was like finding these people that were out there that weren't big, and it was for some reason better. So I have this backwards brain where I don't think that the dream worker with 14.2K or whatever is the one that to follow. It doesn't mean anything to me how many followers they have, except that maybe they have more exposure. I don't know. So I really appreciate, people like you and me and other people that are growing, but slowly, but growing. It's almost like this collective spread happening, and it's in our realm, and right. I'm loving it. I
Yeah.
totally, and I understand what you said about like breaking your own, like once you're like, you feel like you've defined yourself.
Yeah.
That's like
It's
so,
yeah.
it's like so me. It's hilarious. Like I'll be
Yeah.
like, nah, I don't want, and sometimes I'm like, thank God I don't have like right now a huge
Yeah.
following because I'm still experimenting. And I don't want to be boxed in. Like once a lot of people, I feel like follow you, then you start creating content for those people versus yourself.
Right. Like I don't post unless I really enjoy what I'm posting. And it might not even make sense to other people. And so, and in this day and age, how do we keep focusing on quality and not quantity? Who gives a fuck about quantity? It's like that, if I can reach one person completely in my life, that would be a success, and so to open this door to the mysterious worlds that are very real, that
Yeah.
most people don't even know exist, is like the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
The
to do
gold, the
that,
gold. Yeah.
yeah, the goal and the gold, and to do that through the technological magic, the tech dream is fascinating to me,
It's
right?
hard. Like I
Yeah.
like meeting it. I always went to real dream circles with
Yeah.
people. And it was hard for me to transition to an online situation, but I adapted. A lot of my work is digital anyway, like I my day-to-day work, and
Yeah.
I'm very okay with technology. But yeah, I still think people are being duped into thinking that digital is enough.
Right.
I think dreamers still need to meet up and be in person,
Yeah.
and have your online community. But I don't think you should only have an online community. I really, really, when I lived in California, I was looking for my first dream group and there was nothing. And I remember I came upon an ad for a dream group that met in the theater down my street. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to answer this ad. And I called, and the guy who was David Jenkins, the author of Dream Replay, he was like, we
Yeah.
never put out an ad.
Whoa.
And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I have it here in my history folder. I'm looking at, my internet history. There was nothing. It was gone. And he said, why don't you come to my dream circle that we've met for years? And I was like, okay. And then he introduced me as, this is Jenny, the girl that saw our ad, and and I had the privilege of sitting with like the wisest, these guys were at the time like 20 years or 30 years older than me for the most part. And they've been meeting for a long time. They had all this wisdom in the Gestalt approach and the
Beautiful.
Jungian psychology. And I was just like, that's when I was like, wow, dream work, because
Yeah.
I love dream work. And I was going to ask you, like, how do you do your own dream work? Like, when did you get interested in actually like analyzing dreams?
Yeah. I mean, again, I've always been a strong dreamer. And after that initial dream in my 20s, I went through a 3-year period of dreaming where I think like your sister, doom dreaming. But in the fact that it was more personal because I died every night.
Oh, wow.
In dreams, and I was killed in 100 different ways you can only imagine.
Wow.
And so that sort of terrified me at the time, and I didn't quite. And I was so untrustworthy of people. I didn't know what to do about it. So what did I do? I grabbed Carl Jung to start with lightly, right? And I was like, what? I didn't even understand what I was reading. I was just like, what is this? It's almost like an occult and archaic text in a way. And so I started reading some Jung then, and dreams kept coming. And then, over time, I had other dreams that just broke me open in so many ways. And I realized that I needed help and to understand what was going on. And I reached out to a woman in Missoula, Montana, named Anita Doyle, who was, she did astrology, she did the I Ching, and she did dream work. And of course, I was raised conservative, real traditional, and I was like skeptical of all this stuff. And I'd made fun of her work in the earlier years until a dream scared me so bad that I realized I need help, and I called her up. And I was down in her office, 30 minutes later, and she was my entryway into more formal dream study and Jungian background. And then eventually I got so interested in that and mythology that I ended up going to Pacifica Graduate Institute to get really formal training in eco-psychology, as well, with a dream track in there. But I got to sit in the rooms with Marion Woodman when she was still alive, with James Hillman when he was still alive, and learn about dreams. So I feel so blessed on that, route. And ever since then, I've simply been trying to destroy the ivory tower that I learned my dream work in, and take all that psychological language that most people don't understand and put it down into words that, us down in the dirt can just understand, the common sense of dreams. Because there's this lofty objective view of dreams that I really dislike. And for me, they're just living things. So let's make them real.
No, let's make them real. That's a line, because my first podcast that I ever had was called Dream Pioneers. Actually, my IG account, that's Ancient Dreamers, used to be Dream Pioneers, and I just didn't want that account to die, so I changed the name. But in Dream Pioneers, my first episode was called Lucidity is Alive. And it's because, like, how does one begin to, it's how, I think that's when the dance begins, when you begin to play with the dream as an energy being, as a live manifesting something. I don't know, as the weird unknown mystery that it is. Right. And I love that you just said that, because it totally, like, I can totally relate with that in every way. That, I mean, sometimes, I'm not going to lie, but like, I'll intellectualize it because I'm also trying to trick. And I know that eventually, when there is trust gained, you can take them anywhere. And it's almost like, I'll speak your language, but I'll put a little bit of mine, but I'll speak your language, but I'll put a little bit. And then soon I'm not speaking the language anymore. It's like, it's all just me swimming in like weird, whatever I am. But people are already used to like hearing me, that they get it, they start to get it slowly but truly. Then the shadow work begins. And that's the part that I love, because that's when their lives explode. Right. Totally. And not in a good way. And I'm there for it. I'm like, not because I'm an evil person, but I know that your life needs to get a little discombobulated when you start realizing who you are and what you're going to do and where it comes from, like all your patterns, all that stuff. So what are your thoughts on shadow work, and do you practice it?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I love about your work too, because to me, the darkness is something exquisite. It's not, sure, it's dangerous, but that's part of the exquisiteness. And it's something that I love spending time in. So I always try and bring that out, because so many of us like consider darkness a bad thing, and if we were to do dream groups in person, one of the things that I, have done in the past, and I plan to do, is take people out to actually walk in the dark and teach them how to walk in the dark. And then you can translate that into your own shadow work, right? How do you befriend the dark? There are ways to do it. There are ways to move through safely. This is why I call what I do dream tracking, because for me, it's like following this thing into the wilderness. And whether it's light or dark, it doesn't matter. You got to be able to follow it, and if it's a night creature, learn how to move like it. So dreams for me, they cut to the chase, right? They are, in my mind, if we're talking about dreams from the perspective of a navigational tool that keeps waking us up to the full capacity of what we are, then, they do it in such an organic way, and usually bring topics up that in the right sequence of moves. Rather than some plant medicine blast off where we might have a hard time grounding or something like that. Dreams, just like, I trust them on that level. They're honest, right? And so, you gotta love shadow work. It's dreams love bringing up those aspects of ourselves that we're simply blind to. that we don't want to see. And they do it in such a awesome way. It's like if I have a dream of a shadow king, which I did most recently, I'm like, most people would be like, that sounds like a terrible nightmare. I'm like, yes, I am so glad, and I was like there was this door with a round window and there was this entity, very real on the other side. And I knew it was the shadow king. And every time I went to look at his face, he would move it this way so I couldn't see it from away from the window. Then he'd peer back in and I'd move and we were dancing this way. And so, yeah, I think we can talk theoretically about shadow, but in dreams, like we just said, they are very alive, and you have a sense on a feeling level in your body where that shadow lives. And that is like truly facing reality. And that comes from a dream, right?
And when a shadow feels seen, I think that's when it starts experiencing a fear, a strange fear, but since it's you can feel it yourself. It's almost like, in the heart area, at least for me, it's like, I don't know, a lot of people are very obsessed with integration. And sometimes I'm like, some shadows, you can't integrate them right now. Just live with them, accept them, dance with them, like get used to being with them, and maybe you'll get close, but you can't just jump on integration. It doesn't work that way. I think shadow work isn't like a new collective obsession, but in the way where I'm just going to integrate and integrate and integrate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't think so. Like, I feel like I will scare her away right now if I start to look at her like, I'm going to integrate you.
Right.
She'll be like, fuck you. No, you're not, because you're not me. Because guess what? A lot of our aspects are so different from us right now, because they even go back to primordial, times. And some are very beastly. Like, it's not all just like, the shy aspect of me, or it's like it goes in some deeper levels that I'm still figuring out. Like, if for me, that's been recently, there's a lot of dancing with the shadow dreams happening.
Yeah, no, I love that you say all that, because, and especially about the integration piece, because integration is sort of one-sided, almost arrogant in a way. And I talk a lot about, well, all I'm doing is helping people come into relationship with their dreams. I'm not giving them a meaning. I'm not, that's up to the dream itself, if it actually anchors as a meaning inside someone. But and then when we say shadow work these days, via social media, it's like it seems like this, shadow work, it's got this definition. But as you know, shadow work is the tip of an iceberg to a whole realm, as you said, that goes deeply, deeply back into the primordial. I mean, we can't put a frame on it. It's something so much more powerful and so much more bigger than us. And that's what's exciting about it, right? Because and so you don't try and integrate that stuff too fast. Just get to know it. Yeah.
Because I don't know, like, sometimes I learned the hard way, which is, shadow work, I can do it myself. And then I had like the worst 4 years of my life. Like everything was horrible. And I started writing about getting shadow stepped. And that's basically, your shadow stepping over you, stepping on top of you, driving for you because you weren't ready, And I know better now because when people come to me in dreams, I don't know if they're psychic dreams or whatever, they reveal something, and then I confront them a little bit later in life, because I realized when you confront a person, you say, hey, I dreamt that you told me something very intimate. And I realized that it was true, because that's when that's how I learned not to do that. I have to befriend this person, even if they're my boss, a coworker, a person I've only seen on my friends list, but I don't interact with. And it's such a slow process, but it's a long game. It's like, once again, a little bit of trickery, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And a year later, we're friends. And then I can start, working on whatever they came to me for. But I never tell them anymore, like,
right.
Unless it's another dreamer that gets it and wouldn't be
Yeah.
like, because, and thankfully we have a lot of those friends that we can be like, hey, you were in my dream and you said this, because, there's a conscious dreamer mentality. But a
Right.
day-to-day non-conscious dreamer will have a hard time accepting that you were in their intimate space and that they told you something very private.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, that's another like aspect of dream work that started to bug me, because I was like, well, why don't they just dream for themselves, And that's when I started Dream Pioneers many years ago.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to teach these people how to dream for themselves so they stop coming into my dream with all these problems. But I don't mind helping people, but I was realizing, wow, how deep is the fragmentation that a lot of people can't dream for themselves.
Right.
And you just have to start with dreams are interesting, get them interested in dreams,
Yeah. Yeah. And this reminds me of going back to something you said earlier about you growing up in the 70s. And I was born in 68. And so same, we didn't have a fabricated, sort of creative force, which is social media and computers. When we grew up, we used our own active imagination as kids, just naturally. If we were bored, my mom's like, well, go outside, it's like, oh, okay. And then you find something to do. And so, there's something about, the power, and I've sort of lost my train from where we were, but the power of imagination and working with dreams. It's not, there's no formula. There might be a map. We might understand some of the terrain, you and I, that people work in with dreams, but everyone's got to find their own way across that landscape that's theirs. Everyone dreams differently too, and is a different kind of dreamer. And that's one thing I've noticed over the years. And I love working with different people. Some, like your mom, some people are psychic dreamers. Some people are not, some people, have very personal dreams. Other people dream for the community. So anything goes. That's why this world is so much fun.
Well, yeah, the world of dreamers right now, it's just starting to develop where you can see the different countries,
Right.
And I don't mean like real countries, but like you said, the kind of dreamer. And that's why when I found you on Instagram, I was like, oh, we're from the same country-ish, we different dreamers, but somehow writing in the same realm in a way. And I value that a lot, because I always feel like a alien in my own, you know what I mean? Like there's not too many, not around near me. But when I do, I always try to connect, because you never know when those worlds begin to weave and what comes out of it, I guess, alchemically. Because I am, I can recognize you, and therefore my consciousness has now integrated that perception, not your perception, but like that it's something is alchemically playing with it, with me and you. Like there's now that connection, just like, when you make a friend or when you do dream work with somebody, right?
Totally.
Something happens. I don't know. Maybe the dream is the uniting glue.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, sort of, beyond Jung would call it synchronicity, but, for me, underneath the surface, some sort of, whether it's like mycelium or whatnot, something's connected on a level, right? Yeah. And it has its own life. It has its own life beyond our control in a way. And I think that's the important part of what you're doing. And I really love that you're reaching out to other dreamers, because this is something I, deeply feel that, if we attend to this world, the quote default day world is going to become richer, deeper, more interesting, not easier necessarily, but fuller of life. And that's important to me. So,
and for me too, the waking dream, right? It's something that does become a conversation with the nightly dream until it's all just a dream, but not like in the aloof kind of way. That's why I always say conscious dreamers are not aloof. They're actually even more aware and conscious than non-dreamers, because we're aware of our surroundings. And most dream workers, in the Jungian kind of side of things, or in Gestalt or whatever, everything is us. Everything is like we're taking responsibility all the time for everything that's around us, everyone that's around us, every dream character that's around us. And I feel like it's not at all living in the clouds. It's total opposite. It's like complete 100% taking, responsibility. But yeah.
It's I call it sort of, one of the ways that I talk about this is like it's an ecological consciousness, so beyond ourselves. So, and I always love the quote from Jung that in order, and very Jung-like, but in order for our branches of the tree to reach into the heavens, our roots have to be deep in hell. And so so dreams to me are actually an underground, and that's actually the rooting down into the really ineffable consciousness of the earth itself, from whence we come, right? And so where we've arrived from, all the way into the primordial and archaic, and it's in our blood, just as it's in your lineage, and so I imagine a world without dreams would be an eclipsed language full of acronyms and just like sterile and like meaningless.
Well, in a normal world, this is just a glass.
Yeah.
And in the dream world, it is a symbol. So when I first started the waking dream, I would just deconstruct language. Like I wouldn't call things by their name. I would be like, container of liquid.
Right.
Wooden structure, it was never what it was. And that's how I learned to talk waking dream language. But that's when kind of like when synchronicity and magic began. But it has its own magic, and it can be quick if you get into it, or it can be really slow, because it depends on which perception you're using. And it's hard. Sometimes you're having daily reality happening. Like I'm a mom of 2 kids. I'm yelling at them, and it's because they don't listen, and it's like, come here, it's time to eat, and then I'm like, I just want to like be in a different energy right now. But these kids are like ready to rumble and take on the world, and they snap me out of it sometimes. But you know what? I've learned to be in it, even in the chaos that is family, to be in it, because I don't have that luxury where people wake up and write in their journal and they feel like they're on a cloud. I wake up with, Mom, I'm hungry, try to keep this power and this energy during that. That's been training. Like they've been my boot camp to always have. Exactly. When, because they're terrible, terrible and wonderful at the same time, but full of energy and life. And they're both dreamers as well. But anyway, I think we're running out of time, but with you, I guess I could talk so much more.
Likewise.
We'll have to do a part 2 at some point.
That would be fun. And consider collaborating in some way too. Like it'd even be fun to do a live with people with questions or something like that.
My God, that would definitely be fun. I'm loving this extension, this branch that has appeared in my life, which is you and everything that you bring. Thank you so much. So grateful. And how can people find you? Like I'm talking about you and
so my handle is really Raven Dream Tracking on Instagram, and that's where all my content is. And I do have a website as well. There's the Raven. which is the same, ravendreamtracking.org. I have one upstairs. I didn't bring them with me, but so that's where I'm putting out all my content. You can see what I'm up to and the different things I'm involved in dreamwork. So yeah, check it out. And I love interacting with people on Instagram. So like, write me.
Definitely. Yeah. Everybody check out Raven Dream Tracking. And yeah, we'll be talking in the social medias world.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye. Have a great day.
You too.